Welcome to Stayf Draws. I'm Stayf, an illustrator and animator, and this is a new section to my channel that's called Stayf Draws Artbook Reviews. And I'm going to start out with my favorite book, and it's really a must-have if you're interested in animation, and that's The Illusion of Life, Disney animation. And I have the old book, and it's written by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, which were great animators from the golden era of animation. They made animations from 1937, starting with Snow White, until Fox and the Hound. So let's get to the review of the book. This is the old version of the book, and it's called Disney Animation, The Illusion of Life, and it was published by Apeville Press. And now you have a different version, which is called The Illusion of Life, Disney Animation, and that's by Disney Editions. That version is still available on Amazon. And the book was written by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, and they were one of the best Disney animators. And as I told before, they made movies from Snow White to Fox and the Hound. And this is a very nice copy because they did a book tour for the book. And they signed this to me, to Stephen, with best wishes, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. So that's why it's also one of my favorite books. It has great artwork, and it's just a very big book. And it's not a chronological story, but it just got a lot of samples. This book was the first book that really used the Disney archives or the Disney vaults, and after this book there came a lot of books about Disney animation, and this was the first one. So it starts out about the history of art, and they start out at the beginning of art with the cave paintings, and the book has a lot of illustrations and a lot of pictures and outtakes from different movies. So you have Snow White, Bambi, and it's just about animation in general, and also has some nice time charts, you know, that you can see when they started out. In 1923, Walt Disney began the Disney Studios in Kansas City, and throughout the book you have time charts like this, and also some history of animation. Winsor McCay with Gertie was one of the first animations, and it's got a lot of text, but it's very well written and it's very engaging. And here you have a time chart from 1934 to 1943, and here you see the beginning of the first animated feature, which was Snow White. And you got a lot of samples. This is the beginning of Disney animation, with a lot of great pictures of the studios at that time in the 20s and 30s. And the book just goes on with a lot of animation samples, and first started out, you know, with the rubber hose animation, and later on they developed the style more to do Snow White. And this is a great chapter of the book. These are the 12 principles of animation, which is squash and stretch. And they got a lot of different samples from different movies. Anticipation, staging, straight ahead action and pose to pose, follow through and overlapping actions, and this is a very good sample of that, which was animated by Wooly Riderman for El Gaucho. Slow in and slow out, which is very important, and arcs to animate in, and secondary actions. Of course, timing, exaggeration, and solid drawing. And this is a good sample of a flat drawing and a more dynamic drawing. And here you see a picture of Frank Thomas with Ron Clements, who later on directed a lot of Disney movies. So it's a great book with a lot of samples, and here you see how they developed their style from the rubber hose animation to the animation for Snow White. And that just really had to develop very quick in a very short period of time. And this is a background of Pinocchio, and just the book just goes on and on with a lot of samples of the old studio, so you really get a good idea and grasp of how it was to work at the Disney studios in that time. Here a nice caricature of Walt Disney, and some preliminary sketches for Snow White. Great thing about this chapter 6, is the art of appeal, and they take samples of Fred Moore, which was a great animator who drew with a lot of appeal, and he drew a lot of nice girls as well. And the book really just has just a lot of great examples, and they are more to illustrate what they're telling in the text, and it's not in a chronological order. So if they're talking about a pompous attitude, you know, they just use an image of Doc from Snow White, and just a lot of other samples. We're still in the beginning, and this is Hyperion, the old studios where they made Snow White. And they began doing the Mickey Mouse cartoons. So it just goes on and on. And here's the new studio where the animation of Disney is still made on the same lot. This is the old studios, but they build a new one where they make Disney animation now. They also have examples of the animators like Les Clark, Woolie Riderman, who later on also directed some Disney movies like the Rescuers. And these were the 9 old men, and these were the animators who took over from Walt Disney, because he was more interested and occupied with Disneyland and other projects. So they took over the animation, and they made it all possible. And in chapter 9 they explain how Disney animation was made in that time. It was long before the computer age, so they had to do everything on paper. So here are the stylists, and you see some great art by Mary Blair and Ivan Earle and Tyrus Wong. And there are now a lot of great books about these individual artists. But you know, this was really the first book that showed a lot of these preliminary sketches and backgrounds and a lot of art you never saw before. There's some preliminary sketches for Pinocchio when they're in the whale. This was done by Gustav Tengren, which was an illustrator of Golden Books as well. So they work with a lot of great artists who, you know, were also illustrators apart from working at Disney. The great thing about this book is that there's also an animation, and when you flip it, you'll see the animation, and I'll get a close-up from it after I'm done with the book. Here's also the multiplane camera, and they used that from The Old Mill and Snow White and a lot of other movies, so they could, you know, show a depth of field, and they really used it well in Pinocchio and in Bambi. So this is just a wonderful book to have, you know, because it got a lot of samples. You can read a lot of stories about how it was to work for Disney in that era, and it just got a lot of good samples for animations, and if you're an animator, this is really a must-have. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. I'll leave links in the description box down below to Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk. Drawing is fun, and practice makes perfect. See you next time. Doodles!